Welcome to MissPoppins, the Art of Parenting podcast dedicated to creating a supportive community for new parents. I'm your host, Nikki Rishi, and today we have a special episode focusing on parent wellness and grief. Join me as an incredible woman shares her passion for supporting families with managing grief. Ngan Quan, a certified lactation counselor and death doula, has expertise in trauma-informed care and child development. Ngan experiences as a mother have fueled her dedication to supporting families through the transformative stages of birth and early parenting. She specializes in offering compassionate guidance for breastfeeding and navigating the emotional landscape of parenting. Ngan is here to remind us of the strength in community and the power within ourselves to create a nurturing journey for both parents and children. Let's dive in and learn from her valuable insights. Welcome, Ngan, to our podcast today. So good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, we are too. We would love to hear from you what a grief counselor is. Can you explain their primary roles and responsibility, especially in relation to supporting parents? What a beautiful concept.
Yes, so I can. A grief counselor is one who provides tender support and care throughout a person's journey, which in this case would be parenthood. We listen, we validate, and we find ways for families to help cope with their grief. It can look like activities such as journaling, breathing exercises, and sharing. We guide folks in honoring and validating their emotions so that they may better cope with them to welcome and joy.
Okay, and how does this role become particularly crucial during the parenting journey? I guess, could you provide us not just insights, but also examples of the unique challenges parents face while dealing with grief, because that can really help someone associate with, okay, I've never known that I need someone so wonderful in my life, so perhaps some more tactical insights and examples would help.
Of course. So the role of a grief counselor is vital throughout pregnancy and postpartum. So a lot of the times, parents go through so many transitions throughout their lifetimes, right? So before they became pregnant, they were a person prior to that. And now they're entering this new phase of life of pregnancy where their body changes, their emotions are changing. Now they have new expectations or visions of what the future might look like, but they can't really grasp it because it's something that's new and maybe something that they've never done before. So most often they experience grief or a mourning of some sort where their life prior to pregnancy or postpartum can be kind of like a sad moment because it's no longer a piece of them that they could take with them to this new phase of life, right? And now it's shifting and it's changing, and this change could be so big and so overwhelming, and because it's so new, they don't know how to cope with it. So for example, like delivery. You're creating this vision of a birth plan of what you want it to look like. Mm-hmm. And it can feel so beautiful and you're like writing all these things, but then when it happens and you're in the moment of it, it might not go exactly the way that you planned. And then that grief sets in after once you have the baby because you didn't have time to process that delivery experience. So oftentimes these transitions can feel very challenging and so new, and we don't even know that we're feeling these emotions because we haven't had time to process it. So with a grief counselor, we provide guidance and we acknowledge and validate those feelings, those experiences, so that you can move forward and welcome in this life that you do want to create. Because sometimes we cling on to what happened in the past that it's hard for us to move forward.
Absolutely. And I think, of course, motherhood, parenthood, it's glorified and there's glam to it, but there is certainly a dark side element that we don't talk about. And I'm so glad we're talking about that today, right? What helped me was a reality check of the person I used to be. It's going to be almost very gory way of saying it, but it's the death of who I was and it's the rebirth of who I will be as a new mom. And with death comes grief, different phases of grief, different stages of grief. But because we have glorified motherhood in all its glory, of course, to be such a positive experience that we often overlook the other side of the coin. And that is what we, obviously almost like died to become this new person. And I can't encourage folks enough to also look at that other side, because you will be successful in that transition once you have the full picture. And I get now, a grief counselor isn't just for that grief, but it's almost like a transition counselor, if we may even reterm it, right? As the nomenclature goes, like you're helping with the transition of the new birth, the future, and the new you. So let's talk about in what ways grief or a transition could affect family dynamics. And then how does a counselor in this situation help maintain and restore the balance within a family during the time of loss or transition or change?
Right, beautifully said. It is kind of like the dying and a rebirth. So when you experience a loss, you go through different stages of grief.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're in denial that it's even happening. Sometimes you could feel angry about it. You're bartering or praying that if you do something, then hopefully something else will happen outside of it. So these stages occur and it can affect everybody in the family, because when you're tending to grief, it could feel so, there could be a good day one day, and then the next day it's you're sad. And how do we tend to these different emotions when, after, especially after postpartum, when you have your hormones are still trying to recollect itself and your body is still healing? How do we go through this big change and these big emotions and validate them, while at the same time tending to it in a way that, especially for family members, they don't feel like they're stepping on any toes, and they're making sure that you feel safe? Because during times of grief, you might not feel safe. You might feel very vulnerable, like very alone. And this, shows up often postpartum. It could be like sadness with the parent that had just given birth, because all of these things are happening. So, in short, is that it affects many people in many ways. And when we're able to really talk about them and validate them and acknowledge them, are we able to utilize those emotions and move forward with them? Because we've processed them, we're allowing ourselves to feel these things, because like you said, it's so glorified to be picture perfect, not feel these things, be able to get everything right. But in reality, it's like, no, there are challenging moments, and we need to really normalize that.
What does a session look like, or the different phases of a session? So we've talked about the different phases of grief, right? But with a grief counselor, like what can our audience, moms or caregivers, expect as they conduct a session? Is it purely coaching, talking, mentorship, guidance? Like what are some of the tactical elements to expect in a session of this sort?
So there's definitely guidance happening, but from the very beginning, it's listening. I don't think that parents are speaking enough about what they're feeling and what they're experiencing, and truly being heard. So listening is going to be the main component that you'll see. And then afterwards, the grief counselor will guide you with tools and resources that can benefit you and the whole family, so that you can use to really cope with these feelings and these emotions. And also acknowledging them, because at the end of the day, whatever you're feeling and whatever you're processing, it does take time. The more that you're able to speak on it, and the more that you're able to acknowledge that it exists, the more that you're able to release it as well.
Right. And I think some of the tactical examples that parents go through, of course, could be stillbirth. It could be loss after, miscarriage. It could be SID, but it could also be, like we had talked about earlier, right? Transitioning away from your past life to your present, to your future life. So just any sort of transition or loss can come into this component. And there's often a stigma associated with seeking counseling, because parents are seen as pillars of strength in a family. I personally always thought of my mom and dad as these superheroes that could do no wrong. And I still vividly remember that feeling. And the one time I saw my dad cry, it just, broke me down. Back then, they didn't have that concept of support or grief counseling. So it's important for us to bring this awareness out there. Why is it necessary? How does this support benefit not just the parents, but the entire family, and develop resilience and awareness and understanding in kids as adults as well?
Well, oftentimes parents, they're facing these new experiences and they're doing it alone. They're facing their feelings alone. They're parenting alone. They're experiencing these new challenges alone. And a grief counselor is crucial during these vulnerable moments because we're here to acknowledge that you don't have to do it alone. All of your feelings are valid, and there is community, there is support. And when we do that, you can be the strongest family, but in your trying moments, it really truly does take a village, supporting the child, but also you as the parents. People usually come over after the baby has been born and they want to hold the baby, but it's like, what do the parents need? What do they require? Are they being fed? Because they're the ones that are tending to the baby, you know? And we need to look at it like that, where parents need to be tended to, not just the baby, because the parents will do that for their child. But now we need to offer community support to the parents, because that's how you grow a strong foundation and you grow a healthy family and a healthy community.
Absolutely. So well said, Nan. I'm so glad that we had this conversation today and we brought this topic up. And, all sorts of coaching and support guidance with you and other coaches is available on our app, MissPoppins. Thank you for all your guidance today.
Thank you.
As we wrap up this special episode of Miss Poppins' Art of Parenting, we want to express our heartfelt gratitude to Nan, our incredible wellness coach, and to our listeners. We hope you found today's discussion on navigating the waves of grief in parenting. Vital role of grief counselors emphasized to the crucial role they play in supporting parents through challenging times. The conversation highlights the importance of seeking professional help in navigating the complexities of grief in parenting, reminding us in times of emotional turmoil, reaching out for support is a courageous and vital step towards the well-being of the entire family. We encourage you to put into practice the strategies and advice shared by Nan. And if you need further guidance, don't hesitate to download the MissPoppins app, where you can connect with our team of experts, including development, sleep, and wellness coaches, all dedicated to helping you master the art of parenting. I'm your host, Nikki Rishi, signing off. Thank you.